recording here. Yeah, got it. Okay, so let's see. It's open for performance today. What's on your minds?
Oh, you sent out the email and you said it was about whether people who curse us or people who bless us.
Yes. Oh, all right. Well, I sent you guys a map, which is I'm gradually evolving to the point that I become less flexible, I suppose. Because this is a map, guys. I think you got it. Here, I'll show you to the screen. This is a excerpt from the Torah in Hebrew and English, and basically states, and that's a map of Israel, biblical Israel, from the river to the sea, from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, and from the desert to the river, which is Euphrates River, which is near Iraq, Babylonia in the past. So that area comprises of Israel, eastern side, portion of Jordan, portion of Syria, portion of Iraq. As far as I'm concerned, that's Israel. And we had it for 3,296 years. When Joshua crossed over into Canaan, that was the year 2,488, the 10th of Nisan. And if anybody else wants to live with us as by 7 Noahic laws, they're welcome. They have equal rights. They can participate in business, in commerce, in work. They can be engineers, doctors, plumbers, whatever. They're all welcome. But this is a biblical Israel. It's much smaller today, of course, just for the historical reasons. That's why I am on that. So I find it like I used to get disheartened by listening to UNRWA, United Nations, the refugee, whatever the things in Gaza and Lebanon, was like stunned by such injustice and hypocrisy that United Nations collectively essentially promotes terrorism, promotes indoctrination of children with the hatred, and then when you point to them, here it is. Here's a headquarters of Hamas, and on top of that is headquarters of United Nations. Here's evidence, and the leaders of United Nations will say, well, it's alleged evidence. How do you know? And it used to upset me, and it no longer upsets me. I think what we need to do is basically find what's the sign, what's a message that the times have sent us, and the time to send us that the world becomes more and more clear in terms of separation of the side. There's a certainly fight between light and darkness, and then every morning I'm doing before Shachrit at by 5:45 in the morning. I'm doing a little bit. This is a Tanya. I mean, Hasidim learn Tanya, of course. I'm not Hasid, but I like it. And in the Tanya, hi Bob, you're signing in. I see Bob Dorsky. In the Tanya, I'm doing like 10, 15 minutes recording of Tanya every morning. And it basically said here, it quotes, we're now in chapter 11 of Tanya, and it goes, the verse says in Ecclesiastes, and I saw that there is an advantage to wisdom over stupidity, like the advantage of light over darkness. Then the Tanya challenged that, saying, according to Ecclesiastes, God has made one opposite the other. So Tanya bases that Zohar, Kabbalah, states that there's equal amount of good and bad. In other words, everything is balanced. It's like forces are balanced. The more good, the more bad. The less good, the less bad. It's all balanced. So if everything balanced, how can light prevail over darkness? And Tanya makes a derivation that it's like, imagine two bodies, one body and another body, good body and a bad body. Okay, that's the same thing Brad is showing us. And even though they're in balance, but the bad body, the darkness can be, there's a little needle pin, and it's like a balloon explodes and collapses. So I no longer, therefore, as I start to say, upset about what I see as United Nations completely exercises stupidity and anti-Semitism and hatred by denying the basic truth, what actually is going on. And the rest of humanity is basically passive or at least silent. Majority of humanity. There's some voices, but not many. It no longer upsets me. It used to upset me. And I thought the messages is very simple. The Tanya said here, and I prepare it to read it to you, just one sentence, that that the light, the stupidity in quotes of klipa, which is the bad side, and the sitra akra in the left chamber of the heart will be automatically pushed away by a small amount of light from divine soul. In other words, we don't want to be upset. How come from 8 billion people in the world, how come like 4 billion people like Jews and 4 billion didn't like Jews? At least it will be something. Well, it's difference in opinions. Like some people like watermelon, some people don't. 95% of the world basically doesn't like Jews very much, either passively or actively. Very small percentage does. And it used to upset me. How come we saw such injustice? What did we not do? What did we do to deserve such injustice? And the light, the Kabbalah, Zohar states, Tanya states that huge amount of darkness. If you go to a very dark hole, a lot of darkness, a little, you strike the match, and a little bit of light easily. All right, look at this. It's a sound effects, very nice. Drums. So a little bit of a light
That's what I should do.
penetrate the darkness, and therefore I come to my conclusion, then open to the discussion, that we don't have to worry about it. How come we're such a minority? How come minority? The message to the world is very simple. The world has been on the sidelines passively, and now and kind of in a shade. Now it's clear the world is. So our mission as the Jews to light the darkness, and the majority of the world is darkness. So the message is not really to be upset how come the most of the world is in darkness. The message is how come we, minority, do not have enough light to shine into the darkness. And that, to me, is the challenge that God presents to us. Never mind the world. The God will take care of the world. Don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about whether to get the spare parts from our army. We don't have to worry about how we're going to take care of the hostages. Of course, our hearts bleed for them, but we don't have to sit there and rip our hair off and say, what do we do? What do we do? Just relax and just do what God tells us to do. World has 90% darkness. It has a lot of work to do. We don't have that much darkness in us, but we have some. So our responsibility as the Jews are much more on a higher level. Even a little bit of a blemish that we have, we need to fix. What seems to be Moshe Rabbeinu was denied entry into Israel for a very small transgressions that he did, comparing to what a normal human being would be. God would overlook it. But for Moshe Rabbeinu, it was a big deal. So God tells us, Hashem is telling us, Jews, in order for us to shine the light, you have a flashlight. I gave you the flashlight. You're shining it, but it's not enough. You have to behave as I told you, as a Torah that I gave you tells you. And you, Jews, have a lot of good about you. You have a lot of good things. But certain things you have to fix. You have to stop putting bikini and going to the beach on Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You have to sort of respect that in a form and a substance. And those people who put bikini and go to the beach, I'm not being critical. If that's what the people do, fine. But God said, if you do that, you're on your own. If you want this light coming from a flashlight, you begin to behave, take care of another person, help the friend, help the needy, take care of the sick. Like Isaiah say, the widow and the orphan, help them. And if you do, and we have in Israel, we have a Yad Sarah, we have a lot of charity organizations, but for us, it's not enough. God says, you guys doing a lot of good things. That is not what blemished UNRWA doing. It's not a blemish Nazis doing. It's not what the protesters in London doing. You don't even compare to that. That's completely evil working around. You can't take care of that. Just take care of yourself. And if you take care of yourself, nothing will stop you. That's my message. That's why I was saying,
Yeah.
those who
I mean,
bless
Lev,
you.
that's the way, yeah.
Yeah.
Lev, that's the way I see Kalipa too. That's the way I see Kalipa too. Kalipa is a personal is a personal thing to overcome. Kalipa is that they call it a shell that hides your spiritual soul. You have two souls, a spiritual and animal soul. The animal soul is expressed in your physicality, and your spiritual soul is your link to God, basically. And Kalipa is what hides your spiritual soul. We're all prisoners of our physical soul. We want to tap into our spiritual soul, but that's a hard thing to do. I always saw Tanya as a very personal journey. It's not a journey of I'm going to help everyone see through their Kalipa, but you have to see through yours and try and make yourself a better person. I agree with you. In other words, I do see it as a personal journey.
Excellent. Very good. Brad, what do you say to that? Just kidding. Brad just stepped
Brad's
out
not
from the
there.
kitchen. Brad is getting himself a shot of cognac. Well, I was talking about Brad was a cognac, and you came back with a sandwich, which is even a better deal.
Yeah.
So how do you respond to what Bob just said?
Well, I missed it. My wife had me getting the sandwich.
Well, that's a better deal. Okay, but how do you respond anyway? Just intuitively, what do you think he said? Can you just respond to him without knowing what he said? Just try to see.
No. I can respond to what you said in the email today about what you're going to talk about today.
Okay.
And about those that bless Israel are blessed; those that curse Israel are cursed. Right off the bat, if you go back to the 7 laws of Noahide laws, by following those laws, people who do good things will receive blessings, and people who do bad things will receive punishment. So that actually goes right along with it. But the difference is that the Noahide laws is those that actually do things, but by blessing or cursing, it's not a physical act, it's a thought act. So it actually goes a little bit further.
Okay. Jonas, and I can see you unmute yourself. Sounds like you're ready to jump in with a comment.
Only that I thought you were going to burst into a Michael Jackson song. Bob, actually. I'm looking at the man in the mirror. He's the one who's got to change his ways. That's yeah. I agree with the two of you. I'm very thankful, Bob, that you don't take as long to make your point as Lev does. But yeah, it only takes one match to light a forest fire. It only takes one flashlight to light up an auditorium. It may not be bright, you might not be able to read with it, but the fact that our job is to be light, as in or as in illumination. And if all we do is what everybody else in the world does, then we're a part of that darkness. And the only thing that we can do is work on ourselves to be the example.
Excellent.
I have a friend yesterday who told me how he answers everything on the internet, every kook, every crazy person. And I said to my friend, you shouldn't be wasting your time. And then I read something yesterday about that a society falls based on lack of response. So I think my friend was right. And also, Yonatan, what you said is similar to what the Rebbe said to Menachem Begin, I think it was, when he spoke to the UN. He said, why waste your time? And the Rebbe's answer is, one light in a dark room lights up the room. So basically that's the attitude that we're supposed to have.
Yeah, he was walking to United Nations, actually.
Who was it, Begin?
No, it was Netanyahu going to
Netanyahu,
the United Nations, and he had an audience with Rebbe, and that's what he told me. You're going to a house of darkness. That's what he told me. You have to bring yourself the light.
Well, Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, I'll show him. He talked a lot about how we are a light unto the nations. Wrote a book, small book about it too. Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, who did the he did a lot of great stuff, but he died very young. He could have done had he lived a normal life, he would have done an awful lot. But it was a good book if you haven't read it. Light unto the Nations.
Which book? Who wrote the book?
Aryeh Kaplan.
No, I haven't heard of that.
Oh, he's wrote a lot. He did the chumash, the purple chumash that all the shields use on Shabbos.
Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's his.
This is called the Living Torah, I think.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Very good modern style of translation. Very clear.
Mm-hmm. Any others?
I can talk to you a little bit about the UN since you brought it up.
Go ahead, Bob.
Do we ever talk about the UN's definition of genocide? Because that's what they accused Israel and the Jews of. And you talk about darkness. The United Nations, apparently, we talked about the World Court and we talked about how political it is, but we never talked about the charges of genocide. And the charges were brought by a body that has absolutely no definition whatsoever, understanding of what genocide is supposed to be. The UN, have you read about it, Lev, the UN's definition of genocide?
No.
Well, I read what South Africa's doing. South Africa, they're out there pushing, kill all the whites, take their land, everything. They'd starve if it wasn't for the farmers.
Well, there's two reasons South Africa attacked Israel. One is, no, I'm just looking at some notes I'm getting here. One is that the country is in absolute collapse. It's an absolute economic collapse, and they're looking for a scapegoat, so they had to go after Israel. From what I've read, the rampant crime, the railways are in collapse. There's rolling blackouts. The whole nation is falling apart. So what happens when a nation falls apart? They attack the Jews. So here's the 5 definitions of genocide vis-a-vis the United Nations. Number 1, it's called killing members of a group, which sounds a little bit nebulous, doesn't it? Killing members of a group. The second definition of their 5 definitions, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of a group. So far the definition of genocide is meaningless. Number 3, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. The problem here is, in terms of Israel, I don't think Gaza is a group of anything. I think it's just a place of random losers. I don't know what kind of group you would define them as. They're just Arabs. Basically, they're a small group of Arabs. And number 4, definition of genocide. I feel like I'm like David Letterman. The United Nations says imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. The only time I ever heard of someone preventing births within a group was in ancient Egypt, when they wouldn't let the Hebrew men and women get together. And the last definition of genocide by the United Nations is forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. And again, the only ones who ever did that were the Nazis. So by all of these definitions of genocide, the United Nations, basically, it's a very nebulous and meaningless terms. And so how they could go after Israel was something I couldn't understand. And I want to read you one line from the United Nations, which shows how they're very uncomfortable with their own definition. In the United Nations Convention on Genocide, they wrote, and I'm quoting the United Nations, "It is extremely important that United Nations officials adhere to the correct usage of the term," even though they don't have one. And they say United Nations officials should rely on the determinations of lawfully constituted courts and discussion points. I didn't know that the United Nations had any lawfully constituted courts or what they're based on.
Yeah.
But, you know, something we might want to talk about honestly as Jews, and we're for Jews here, is the Torah has a long history of wiping out people who deserve to be wiped out. We have a very different view of genocide than the modern world does. You know, we can look at, you know, Joshua was given command to conquer the land any way that he wanted. We have Shimon going after Shechem after they raped Dinah by totally wiping out the city. We have Jericho, which Joshua completely wiped out. And of course, we have Sodom and Gomorrah. We have vengeance on the Midianites. I mean, we have endless examples in our own history of when a society has no right to live anymore. And my question is I think the Jews, based on Torah thought, have absolutely every right to go after Gaza and to foment on them whatever level of destruction we see fit. I want to show you some pictures. I happen to run across by chance at Federation in Atlanta, a Holocaust exhibit, and I took some photos. This is a photo, if I can get it here. This is Goebbels talking to a crowd. Forgive my shaking hands. This is Goebbels talking to a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Were they all guilty? Yes. Should they all have been wiped out? Yes. This is youth at the book burning. Were all those youth guilty? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a right to wipe them out? Here's just an average guy. This guy is a guy that's an engineer who runs a train, but he was running the train that was going to Treblinka. He was probably an average Pole. So is he guilty? The answer is yes. And so they are in Gaza, since everyone knows that 90% of Gaza supports Hamas. So by all definitions, Israel is perpetrating this war justly. I understand that 80% of Gaza has been destroyed. And I understand, and you guys know better than me, that Israel is intent on pushing the population out, if not destroying it. And I think it's totally justified.
Yeah.
You know, and you look
No,
at the
nobody
UN
wants
judging
to.
us. Let me just say one more thing. You look
Yeah.
at the UN judging us based on these nebulous, meaningless definitions. You know, I'm sorry, I don't agree.
I think United Nations, after the war is over here and Hamas is defeated, the U.S. I mean, if you, U.S. will do it, especially with a president like Biden and whatever who runs America today. Close down United Nations in New York and move it to Gaza. Let UN. It will be a great economic boom for them. Building, they know how to build tunnels. They know how to build construction. Build a huge United Nations building with a tunnel under it. Sit in the tunnel and make all your meetings all day long. It would be a great economy boost for Gaza. Construction, trade, and they can vote and they can criticize Israel all they want right across the street. We can even send our delegates to help them.
Well, you got to admire them for being hard workers and industrious. When you see the stuff that they've done and they build and they've made, they're tremendously hard, industrious workers. Can you imagine if you gave them factories? They could go into competition with China. And instead of picking up a TV set or a shirt and saying made in China, it would say made in Gaza. Seriously, because you got to give them credit. They really, when you see those tunnels and stuff that they did, that's a tremendous amount of hard work. It's just they need to put that energy.
That's what Nazis did also. They're very efficient when they build those crematoriums. They know exactly how many BTUs it takes to burn a human body. So they're very excellent engineers, Germans.
Yes, the Germans did a lot. If you look at some of the stuff in the patent filings the Germans had, fortunately, the V-10 never got finished, but that would have been a real weapon of terror. The V-10. They also had drawings for flying saucers. They were working on research. But going back to Gaza, first of all, the people in other countries, the Arab countries, don't want the Gazans. They see the kind of violence they bring. They don't want it. That's in fact, Egypt came out and said, if you send us even one Gazan person, we're going to cancel all peace treaties with Israel.
Yeah.
That was in the news the other day. Even one Gazan. But if you could get them to work, and I mean, they're very, very hard workers. So it's a matter of redirecting their energies into a productive and lawful manner. And that
Well,
would
I think,
really,
yeah, the only way to do this is to judge them. I think only the Jews have a right to judge since we invented law, or basically Hashem did through Torah. I think the Jews have a right to judge them. And I think based on on Torah history, on Torah law, they have to be, their society has to be completely destroyed. They have to be completely leveled, and then it has to be rebuilt from the ground up. And yeah, they're very bright people. I had plenty of Arab patients from Judea and Samaria when I was a dentist, and they're smart people. They are. You're right. They're very bright people, but their culture is utterly destructive. I think the UN can go take a hike, and the UN and Israel's doing the right thing. You're right, though, Lev. Put the UN in Gaza. That would be a great economic boon to them.
Yeah, they don't have to make it high building like New York City, like what, 50 stories. They just make it wide, like an entire Gaza. Entire Gaza will be one big building, and it'll be United Nations building. Imagine, there's pulled a huge building, like 10 miles, 30 miles long, 40 miles deep, one big building. You can have swimming pools there. You can have like pool, tennis courts, music fests, and just go at it. It'll take several years to build it, and not a lot of financiers. Norway will finance it. South Africa, I'm sure, will be glad to finance it. They have plenty of money. They have a lot of gold. There will be a golden opportunity for South Africa to build United Nations big building in place of Gaza.
Well, if you guys follow politics here, Biden's finished. Trump is going to be the next president, and things will get better.
it'll be Michelle anyways.
Michelle Obama, yeah.
Yeah.
People don't realize she's not very political. She's probably the most famous woman in the world. She's very, very wealthy, and she's adored. She was never very political. I would be shocked if she would want to do the dumb thing and try and become president.
Well, she wouldn't do anything. She'd be the new puppet because Biden's the current puppet, and they're just going to get another puppet. That's all, because Obama's the puppeteer.
I wouldn't be surprised that Michelle Obama will be running against Trump. I wouldn't be surprised. And quite frankly, she has a good chance. I still have a lot of support.
All the housewives in Dunwoody will vote for her.
Well, that's what you just said is very significant because, the white suburban housewife makes presidents, and they probably would vote for Michelle. She presents herself very well. She's very smart.
I don't know if she's smart, but she certainly fits what America, most of America who supported certain trends in American society will support her.
I noticed the politics are very quiet in Israel. I guess you guys are just accept the fact that Netanyahu's going to be there for a while.
I need a strong guy.
We're in the middle of a war, fellas. You don't change leaders in the middle of a war if there's no election. I mean, if the government was toppled, I don't know how you do that, because right now we have a war cabinet. We have decisions being made that are basically fiats. This isn't the time to start to calling for elections. I mean, that's subversive.
Yeah,
in my mind.
But attitude, Bob, by attitude in Israel, I mean, in Nahariya, where Jonathan is, it's probably a little bit more tense because they're closer to Lebanon, to Hezbollah, and a lot of areas evacuated, very difficult for people. So it's in the south where we are. But 90% of the country lives normal lives. Our hearts bleed for the hostages and for soldiers that die. Yeah, but we don't dwell in it every moment. We move on. We go to the malls, we go to the shows, we work, we go to the beach when the beach opens, and we help the soldiers the best we can. And Israelis are basically are capable in our own bureaucracy, unfortunately or fortunately, is a good shield for us. We sort of like scratch our heads and let me think about it. And by the time we think about it, the crisis is over. So we always, that's why Israel was never really subjected to big economical crushes like US and other world, because when we have, let's say in US, something bank raises interest rates and this, inflation, the market crashes, housing bubble, this and this, and they make decision quickly how to fix that. This month we'll raise the rates, next month we'll drop the rates, and Israel say, well, we have economic problem coming up, let's raise the rates by 1%. Well, we have to debate and talk about. So 2 or 3 years later, we say, yes, okay, we'll raise the rate. By now, the crisis is gone. So, but we talk more about it, and we don't do anything about things. Like in the meantime, within 3 years, a lot of houses are built, and the roads are built, and parks are made. So, so our own kind of like this balagan behavior helps us, saves us from all this, from all the problems of the world. Life is great. I mean, this.
Yonatan, you live in the north, or I thought you lived in Beersheba?
He's Narian.
Oh, you're Naria.
Yeah, absolute north.
No, I didn't know where you lived. How come you weren't evacuated?
Because we're just beyond the evacuation line. Naharia is large enough that where I live in the southern neighborhood next to the beach, I don't hear the sirens that go off in the northern neighborhoods, which are closer to the confrontation line. But that's it's ridiculous. It's a matter of 6 kilometers.
Yeah, why don't people go back? I mean, Hezbollah rockets can reach Tel Aviv. So what's the point of evacuating North Israel?
Because of 50,000 soldiers, or I don't know how many Hezbollah soldiers are ranged and ready to make lightning strikes into the country and do the same in an organized military manner that Hamas did in the south. Hamas gave them an example. The rest of the Muslim world is very angry at Hamas for having jumped the gun and done this something like 5 years too soon, because in another 5 years, the entire Arab world could have done surgical strikes on every single border. And our peace-loving peaceniks in the government would have done the same thing, i.e., nothing. It would have.
What's the plans for Hezbollah? As soon as Gaza's secure, is Israel going to go after Hezbollah?
It was in the news this morning that France was trying to make a treaty with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they wanted, this is a French offer, was that Hezbollah had to pull back to the UN 1701 regulations, 10 kilometers. The Lebanese troops would fill in that 10-kilometer band, and Israel would stop shooting. And of course, if they stopped shooting at Israel, Israel would stop shooting back. But that was from the UN. But
that's dead on arrival, right? That offer, dead on arrival.
Well, Hezbollah doesn't. Israel's willing to accept it. Hezbollah, you see, you can call them Hezbollah, you can call them Hamas. They're really Iranians because Iran pays the bill. They work full time for Iran. And this is where the money comes from. So that's what it's all about, to really Iranians. And it's their goal. Iran wants to take over the world.
Well, they want to take over the Middle East.
No,
The world.
The world.
Well, the world's a big place.
Look how many people they brought into America. You know how many Iranian soldiers under various names are now in America? Come through the south, come through the north. Tons of them. They just have to get the word to go, and then it's going to happen.
Oh, hey, can I ask a quick question to Bob? Bob, quick question. We have only 3.5 minutes to ask a question for 15 seconds. Jonathan will love it because he knows this type of questions will come from me. Next week, I have an appointment with a dentist. My lower tooth here, he said he looked at it, it's green. It doesn't hurt, never hurt me. It has some filling. He says it's green. That's a sign you may have infection. I have to take the filling off, and maybe you need a crown or root canal. But it doesn't bother me. Should I do it? Should I go? He has to dig it up and check it.
Do you have X-rays? Do you have X-rays?
Yeah.
Send them to me.
Okay. I will.
You have my email. Do you have my email address?
Of course, you get all my recordings. Yes.
Yeah, no. Send me the X-rays and I'll look at it and I'll respond to you.
This was a great meeting today, guys. Look at this. I even got Bob to check my X-ray on my tooth.
No, don't be so happy. You haven't seen the bill yet.
I'm sure it's in the mail. It's in the mail. All right,
So
guys.
guys, it's really exciting. On April 8th, we have a total eclipse of the sun. I made hotel reservations in Arkansas, and I'm going to be off and running to the total eclipse. I've never seen one before.
Take some pictures. Send them some pictures of the darkness.
You know how Harold Schroeder, maybe he'll get pictures. I'm not too good at it.
Just
Yeah, I
take,
know,
it,
Harold.
take it with the camera. Just that this will see. Will be fun to see. What
Everyone's going. There's going to be millions of people there. The rabbi's thinking of flying either to Buffalo or Illinois to see it. You know, it's everyone's off and running to see the eclipse.
it
Now, my
sounds like,
son-in-law is going. He's a photographer, my son-in-law, and he's
Oh.
going to somewhere. I think he's going to Texas or something like that to watch it.
Yeah,
So
that's
he lives
supposed to be
in
the best
San Francisco.
weather is Texas. My nephew is flying from New Jersey to Dallas, Texas to see the eclipse.
maybe during the total eclipse, it will be a tense plague, and all the bad people's firstborns will be killed.
Well, what I want to see, you know, as a davening Jew, if the sun will not only have an eclipse, if it will stand still.
You'll stand still for a couple of weeks so you can get there. You know, get in a hotel, check in, and relax, get yourself a cocktail, and that's it.
Right.
For the next Tuesday, guys, what topic? Any particular topic you'd like to chat?
Well, we have to think about it, and I have to send you my 100 suggestions.
That sounds good. We'll pick you. You always have a good ones. So
And your bill. And your bill.
And my bill. Yonatan or Brad, you guys want to present something next week, or do you want me to do it?
Happy for you two.
Depends on the topic.
All right. Well, we'll throw some back and forth, see what we can find.
Sounds
My,
good.
my area of expertise is more scientific.
All right, Bob. So
Your
you,
expertise is scientific.
Look at my website, and you'll see some of the stuff that by some of my papers, my
he's
research.
you don't know. Brad is like a super undercover agent. He's a triple, quadruple agent. He works like for Mossad, KGB, CIA. You know it, and even Hamasniks. He even knows all of them.
Brad, I don't remember. What's your background?
Shavuot Tov, Shabbat Shalom. Talk next Tuesday.
Oh, okay. All right. Goodbye.